The bird that hangs back from your feeder is often not the least interested bird. It may be the one doing the most sophisticated survival calculation. You've seen this moment. One bird drops in immediately, grabs seed, and seems completely at ease. Another lands nearby and waits. It watches from the branch above, or the railing, or the fence. It leans forward, pulls back, tries again, then disappears. It is very easy to read that as personality in the simplest possible way. Brave bird, nervous bird, greedy bird, picky bird, a bird that likes you, and a bird that doesn't. And that's exactly where backyard observation gets more interesting. Because what looks like feeder confidence is often a mix of risk assessment, memory, social rank, body design, seasonal pressure, and learned trust in a very specific patch of space. The first bird to step forward is not always the boldest. The bird that stays back is not always the most fearful. Sometimes, the waiting bird is the one noticing something important before the others do. So in this video, I want to show you what that hesitation may really mean, what to watch for in your own garden or balcony, and how a few small changes in placement, cover, cleanliness, and disturbance can make a feeding space feel dramatically safer and calmer for birds. The first layer is the most important one. For a small bird, feeding is never just feeding. Behavioral ecologists like Stephen Lima and Lawrence Dill helped make this clear decades ago in predation risk research. Animals don't simply ask, "Is there food?" They ask, "Is there food? And what could kill me while I'm getting it?" That sounds dramatic, but that is the everyday math of being a wild bird. A feeder may look safe to us because we filled it ourselves. To a bird, it is a place where the head goes down, attention narrows, wings may be partially occupied, and escape routes suddenly matter. The distance to the nearest shrub matters. The openness of the sky matters. The angle of the window matters. The possibility of a cat, a hawk, or a fast movement from inside the house matters. Even the way the feeder swings in the wind can matter. So when a bird pauses, it may not be unsure about the food. It may be reading the whole scene. The bird on the branch is not doing nothing. It is finishing the decision. And that gives you your first backyard translation. If birds approach but hesitate, don't assume the seed is wrong right away. Look at the space around the feeder. Is there nearby cover for a quick retreat, like a shrub or small tree? Is there so much cover underneath or beside it that a predator could ambush from close range? Is the feeder sitting in the danger zone near a reflective window? A better setup is usually one that offers escape options without turning the area into a hiding place for predators. And if windows are involved, reducing reflections and placing feeders either very close to the glass or much farther away can help lower collision risk. Then there's a second layer, and this one changes how you read the birds themselves. Different species do not feed with the same style. Some birds are built for quick, repeated visits. Chickadees, titmice, and nuthatches often look unusually confident because they're efficient. They fly in, grab a single seed, and leave to handle it elsewhere. That style can look fearless, but a lot of it is speed. They minimize exposure time. A dove, by contrast, may need a different kind of space and feel far more vulnerable in an elevated feeder. House finches may linger more. Sparrows often rely heavily on group cues. Woodpeckers may appear deliberate and self-possessed simply because their feeding posture and body mechanics are different. So the bird stepping forward first may not be the bravest in a general sense. It may just be the species best suited to that exact feeder design, perch position, and escape pattern. Then add social dynamics, and the picture gets even more layered. In many feeder birds, there are dominance hierarchies. Some individuals displace others. A lower-ranking bird may wait not because your garden feels unsafe overall, but because another bird already at the feeder is socially expensive to challenge. Hanging back can be a way to avoid pointless conflict, conserve energy, and wait for a better opening. What looks to us like timidity may actually be smart timing. That gives you another practical clue. If you regularly see birds approach and then get pushed off, or if only one or two individuals seem to control the whole feeder, the problem may not be fear at all. It may be crowding. Multiple feeding stations, a little more spacing, different feeder heights, or separate food types can reduce bottlenecks and help less dominant birds feed without constant confrontation. The third layer is memory, and this is where many people feel an emotional shift. Birds do not experience your garden as a blank stage every morning. They remember places. They remember patterns. They remember where trouble happened. Bird cognition research is famous for this in corvids, but the wider lesson matters across backyard birds too. Birds are not operating on one blunt instinct. Many are strong spatial learners, and species that cache food, like chickadees and nuthatches, are especially good at remembering locations. A feeder is not just a feeder. It becomes part of a map of risk and reward. That means a bird that suddenly hangs back may be responding to something that happened yesterday, or an hour ago, or last week. A cat may have moved underneath. A hawk may have rushed through. A person may have approached too directly. A feeder may have swung violently during a refill. A window may have reflected sky at the wrong angle. Even repeated, harmless disturbances can add up if they keep happening in the same spot. This is why birds sometimes seem to stop trusting a garden. Usually they are not making a moral judgment about the person feeding them. They are updating a survival map, and that should be reassuring, not discouraging. Because it means small, steady choices matter. Consistency matters. Moving calmly matters. Refilling the feeder in a predictable way matters. On a balcony, the sudden slide of a door opening can reset the whole risk calculation. Indoors, standing right up against the glass and staring straight at a bird can also make the scene feel less usable. If you want birds to settle, it helps to let the space feel predictable. Wild birds often accept routine faster than novelty. The fourth layer is body language, because once you know what to watch for, hesitation stops looking random. A bird that feels relatively settled usually moves with flow. It lands, scans briefly, feeds, and either returns quickly or stays nearby without constant alarm. A bird that is not ready often looks stretched and interrupted. The neck lengthens, the head turns repeatedly. There are sharp pauses between hops. It may lean toward the feeder and then pull back. It may make short visits without committing to a full feeding posture. Sometimes the whole flock's rhythm changes, and you hear more alarm notes, more wing flicks, more abrupt departures. One of the most overlooked details is the staging perch. That branch above the feeder, that hook, that railing, that favorite wire nearby is part of the feeding setup. Birds use these places to assess safety before exposing themselves. If your feeder has nowhere comfortable to pause nearby, some birds will use it less confidently. If the only nearby perch is too exposed, they may look interested but never fully settle. So when you're observing, try not to watch only the feeder tray or port. Watch the ring around it. Where do birds stop first? Where do they look before dropping down? Do they launch away in the same direction every time? Do they avoid one side of the feeder? Those patterns can tell you more than the feeding itself. Sometimes, the best improvement is not a different seed. It's a better approach route, a stable feeder instead of a wildly swinging one, a nearby natural perch, a slightly quieter corner, a more protected angle that still allows a clear escape. Now here's another reason feeder confidence seems to change without warning. The birds themselves are changing through the year. In winter, energy pressure can make birds take risks they would avoid in milder conditions. When it's cold and daylight is short, the need to refuel can outweigh caution. During breeding season, territorial behavior can make some birds look suddenly aggressive or strangely absent. In late spring and summer, newly fledged birds may appear awkward, hesitant, or indecisive simply because they are inexperienced. They haven't had months of learning in your particular space. During migration, entirely new individuals may arrive with no history in your garden at all. And when natural food is abundant, birds can afford to be choosier and less dependent on feeders, which often gets mistaken for rejection. So, if birds visit only at certain times, or one species seems bolder in January and more elusive in June, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. Timing is information. Season is information. Even weather is information. Wind exposure, heat, heavy rain, and sudden changes in barometric pressure can all alter how much risk birds are willing to take in an open spot. This is where one of the most important reframes lives. The bird that stays back is not failing a courage test. It is managing trade-offs you cannot always see. Hesitation is not always fear. Sometimes it is intelligence made visible. And once you see that, a lot of frustration falls away. The bird avoiding the feeder may not be ungrateful, not stubborn, not uninterested, and not too dumb to notice the food. It may be noticing more than you are. So what can you actually do with that? One of the most helpful changes is to think in terms of safe layers, not just food. Seed alone does not make a bird-friendly feeding space. Birds also need a workable retreat route. If your feeder is out in the open with no nearby cover, some birds will remain wary. If it is shoved deep into dense cover, others may avoid it because a predator could hide there. The sweet spot is often nearby shelter without a built-in ambush point. Another change is reducing sudden disturbance. If birds explode away every time you refill the feeder, walk out, or open a door, try to make those moments more predictable. Move a little slower. Avoid approaching directly if you don't need to. Refill efficiently and step back. Let the space settle. A garden becomes legible to birds when the patterns in it stop surprising them. Crowding matters too. If one feeder creates a queue and a lot of displacement, splitting the traffic can transform the whole mood of the yard. A second feeder, a short distance away, or different feeding levels for different species, can give quieter birds a chance to feed without entering the busiest zone. Sometimes, what looks like a confidence problem is actually a competition problem. Cleanliness is another hidden piece of confidence. Wet, spoiled, or clumped seed can change behavior. So can a dirty feeding area. Birds may still come, but more cautiously, or not at all. Keeping feeders clean, seed dry, and fallen debris from building up too much helps make the site more usable and lowers disease risk. If you ever see multiple birds looking unusually lethargic, fluffed up for long periods, crusty around the eyes or face, or struggling in ways that go beyond normal rest, pausing, feeding for a short time, and cleaning thoroughly is often more helpful than simply topping everything off again. And don't ignore glass. Window danger can sit right inside what people read as bird nervousness. If birds repeatedly approach, startle, or seem uneasy on one side of a feeding area, look at the reflections. From their angle, that beautiful open sky in the glass may be a false route. Markers, screens, or changes in placement can make a bigger difference than changing food ever will. Just as important is knowing what not to worry about. A short disappearance after a hawk passes through is normal. A feeder slowdown during natural food abundance is normal. Juveniles acting clumsy is normal. Birds watching from nearby before committing is very normal. What deserves closer attention is a pattern that stays wrong. Repeated window strikes. A feeder almost no bird will use after placement. Constant hard flushes from one direction that suggest a cat or predator route. Seed going stale in damp weather. A whole feeding area that suddenly feels tense across several species at once. If that happens, don't panic, and don't assume the birds have gone off your garden forever. Treat it like information. Ask what changed. The answer is often something specific and fixable. And beneath all of this is a quieter truth that I think keeps people watching birds for years. When a bird finally steps forward onto a feeder, that moment is not casual. It is not trust in the way we talk about trust with pets. It is something wilder and, in its own way, more moving than that. It is a tiny animal deciding that this corner of your world is usable. Not perfectly safe. Wild places never are. But safe enough, predictable enough, readable enough to enter. That is why the waiting matters. The pause on the branch, the glance toward the hedge, the quick retreat, the second attempt, the one cautious hop closer, all of that is part of the story. It is not a failure to feed. It is the visible edge of a mind balancing hunger, memory, risk, and opportunity in real time. And once you understand that, your feeder stops being just a feeder. It becomes a conversation made of distance, cover, routine, movement, and respect for how a wild bird experiences space. So, the next time one bird rushes in and another holds back, look a little longer. Ask what each bird is responding to. Look at the branches, the window, the shadows, the social tension, the season, the route in, and the route out. Very often, the answer is there. If you have a bird in your garden or on your balcony that always seems to wait while others step forward, tell me what species it is and what your setup looks like. Those little details often explain everything. And if you like going deeper into the hidden meaning inside ordinary bird moments, subscribe. There is a lot more happening in your backyard than it first appears.